I don't think about money. Is that anti capitalist? Welcome to this lecture on anti capitalism for social justice. Anti capitalism is an ideological lens that opposes and actively critiques capitalist structures of power and aims to replace and transform them with more equitable systems and social relationships. In the context of social justice movements, an anti capitalist lens allows people and organizations to understand the role of capitalism and class based oppression in shaping people's lived realities and their experience of socio-cultural inequality. Karl Marx famously criticized capitalism and capitalists who own the means of production as alienating the masses from the produce of their own labor, thereby producing and reinforcing unequal power relations between the capital owning and labor classes. From what we have learned in previous modules about intersectionality, we can then make the connection that one's class position does not exist in isolation. It intersects with one's gender, their race, their caste, their ability, and other forms of social and group identity, leading to the formation of a unique position of privilege and or oppression. For example, a poor disabled Dalit woman faces vastly different challenges than an upper caste able-bodied Hindu man. Can you reflect on what some of these differences might be? An anti capitalist lens to social justice then critically examines socio cultural relations and lived realities against the backdrop of inequality in wealth, opportunity, and privilege, which is both resulting from and leading to the prevalence of capitalist oppression. Capitalist oppression forces people to continue to work for capitalists to survive. It makes the rich even richer, while those doing the labor that makes them rich do not have access to the products of their own work. Rather, it leads to working classes aspiring to become rich themselves without critically assessing the exploitative circumstances that they are operating within. Often, the idea of building an alternative to capitalism is seen as a utopian construct based on a complete structural breakdown. While this may be true to the extent that such a breakdown is necessary for economic and social systems to be transformed fully, there are also practices within our social justice movements that can be informed by an anti capitalist lens. A few examples include community commitments to reducing consumerism through recycling, reusing, and sharing resources like food, books, clothes, etc. Supporting small local businesses and ethical supply chains. And while this may not be a perfect practice given the lack of transparency and dependence on large corporations we're seeing around the world today, it could still be a good place to start. Another thing that we can do is use anti capitalist analyses to read policy frameworks on labor rights, social welfare, etc., to identify whether and how they may be reproducing social inequality. And finally, we can also examine how class impacts how you form and maintain relationships and address the implicit and explicit classism within them. Two major critiques of anti capitalism, however, are that it is a vague concept and relies on a range of often conflicting ideologies, meaning that it does not offer space for extensive on ground action in the social justice movement, where many concerns are urgent and suffer from a lack of movement as a result of stuckness in theory and ideological specifications. It also does not account for the shifting and adaptive nature of capitalism, which evolves to meet and neutralize its critiques. An example of this is the anti capitalist push against exploitative 9 to 5 employment, which converts individuals into cogs in a machine and restricts people's freedoms and creativity as workers, to which capitalist systems responded by individualizing the pursuit of capital through the gig economy and the side hustle culture. With these modifications, consumerism just seems to continue, and individuals are placed in even more precarious labor conditions. This precarity adds to the challenge of sociocultural inequality and often leads to slowed progress. For example, as the gig economy exposes more and more marginalized people to unsafe working conditions and increased personal risk, the labor rights movement in India is faced with new challenges for gig workers, including poor wages and a lack of job security. What are your thoughts on these criticisms and on anti capitalism in your everyday practice of social justice work? I hope this video helped you better understand anti capitalism as a lens for social justice and also helped you reflect on challenges that you might face when you employ this lens within your own work. In the next module, we will discuss your role in social justice movements. I hope to see you there.